everyone has a story to tell. The saying is everyone has a book in them somewhere. What is your story to tell, and how will you get it across in your podcast? Episode 6, Become a Powerful Storyteller in 10 Steps to Create Powerful Podcasts. This is Radio Skills for Podcasters.
Learn the secrets of the radio industry.
Create powerful podcasts.
Powerful podcasts.
My name is Kevin Field. I'm the host of Radio Skills for Podcasters. With this podcast, you can learn the skills of the radio industry, unlock your potential, and create powerful podcasts. Everyone has the ability to tell a story. Some do it better than others. Perhaps some have more experience to share their story, or do they? There are skills and techniques to storytelling, and they're used by the very best comedians, very best presenters, writers, filmmakers, grannies, mums, dads, brothers, sisters, and mates down the pub. We're all at it every single day, telling stories. But what is it that is great about a great story? Storytelling is what makes the world go round. The power of storytelling coming up. Top tip this week will help you when it comes to the stumble or two in your podcast. We all do it, but how do you cope with it, and what are the techniques that you can use to help you stop stumbling, or at least prevent some of them? And if you're looking for a one-to-one podcast coach, look no further than radioskillsforpodcasters.com. We don't talk tech, we talk about the skills of the bits you put in between, the content. The aim is to supercharge and create powerful podcasts when we work together. Email skills@radioskillsforpodcasters.com or tweet at radio_skills. Visit radioskillsforpodcasters.com and coaching to find out more.
This is Radio Skills for Podcasters.
Telling stories. Do you remember that at school? I used to get that all the time. Field, are you telling stories again? And you know what? I was. I love telling stories. Maybe that's why I do what I do, working in the radio industry. But we've all done it. Some, you may have noticed, are great at it. But what is it that sets them apart? There are key ingredients of great storytelling. Of course they are. You know that. And further skills and techniques you can use as a speech-based presenter to create the theatre of mind for your listener. It's all about the worms you use and how you frame them, how you tease your story, how to keep the listener hanging on your very last word, how to deliver the punchline. Here's 10 tips then to help you create powerful stories. Tip 1, always be truthful, but add colour and imagination. Make your story true and about you, and you instantly create power. Yes, you can add colour. You can use a bit of artistic license. Great comedians do this. They exaggerate about their life. Howard Stern, American radio presenter, tells it like it is. Many years ago, he was caught in a lie. As he put it in the film Private Parts, he said he promised never to lie again when talking to his listener. And that's a key thing about being true to yourself and being true to your listener. A listener can always spot a faker. Be real, be you, never lie, don't make it up. Add artistic license, of course, but there's a difference between painting pictures with words to coming up with things that just didn't happen. Tip number 2, relate to your audience. Your story should resonate with the listener. Make it about you, but also about the listener. How does your story help them solving their pain? Can they relate to your journey? I used to go to all the events that my radio station held. I used to go to the things in the community where things were happening, always mixing with the listener. I used to go into a shop and buy my newspapers. Oh, I heard you this morning, Kev. Very good. Thanks very much. You know, it was just all about that. I ate my food in the location in the area. I was a part of that area, but I was on the radio. One of my friends became Mr. Maidstone when we ran a radio station in Maidstone in Kent in the UK. He lived in the area, but he lived the life of his listener, and he talked about him and them all the time. He related to his audience. So live the life of your listener. Relate to your audience. Tip 3, create drama. I was fortunate enough many years ago to work with a producer of a UK TV show called Heartbeat. He did that for 10 years. His name was Andrew Morgan. He did EastEnders and Doctor Who and all the other stuff as well. And we were working at the time on a radio play, and he really does know how to create great drama. Do you know what? He made Daleks. Yes, Daleks. He made them fly. Before him, they didn't fly. It made national news headlines in the newspapers here in the UK. Doctor Who? Daleks flying? How dare he? How's that for drama? This is how Andrew Morgan once described drama to me. And I love the way he does. He's just imitable Andrew Morgan. So he said, you live alone. You get home at night. You turn the key in the door. Door opens. You go in, pop the light on. Everything's fine. That's not drama. But instead, you live alone. You get home at night. You turn the key in the door. And the lock breaks. And the key is in your hand broken. And then behind the door, there's a scream. But you live alone. That's drama. So like Andrew Morgan says, create some drama in your storytelling. It pays dividends. Tip 4, paint pictures with words. Might sound obvious, but many people don't do it. Think about the words you use. Create some colour, some depth, some light and shade, some composition with the words you use. Be descriptive when telling your tale. Use words that engage, not passive words, but words that just make the thing move. This is audio, darlings. It's theatre of the mind. Tip 5, a start, middle and end with purpose. Every single story has a setup and a body of content and an ending. And good stories have purpose. What's the moral of this tale? Now, I'm not saying it has to be moralistic, but it's the question people ask of saying, well, where did that story go? I didn't get it. What's that about? It has to have a journey for the listener, and it has to have a resolution. Take me from a position of not knowing to enlightenment. Planning a start, middle and end will really help you achieve this in your podcast. Tip 6, questions to be answers. I start this podcast with a question and kind of statement set up. I set up the journey that you're about to take. Start with a question that needs answering, perhaps, as new media experts say, and I've said earlier, about the pain that people are facing. For example, and this was done in the film The Happening. Have you heard the story about honeybees vanishing? Tens of thousands of bees just disappearing. But why? It's the sort of setup This American Life and Freakonomics sort of use. They set up the story, they weave commentary, vox pops and storyboards throughout the whole story. It's fantastic. I love how they do it. You could do it with your podcast. The honeybees are vanishing. What could the body of the piece say? I don't know. We could look at all the scientific research going into bee losses, interviews and stats in the body of the story, then end with a quote which is, by the way, wrongly attributed to Einstein, but it's great anyway, so I'm going to use it. You could end with this quote: if the bee disappeared off the surface of the globe, then man would only have 4 years of life left. Sounds very interesting. Tip 7. Don't rush and use your range. Allow your story to breathe. A great trick is to include silence. In the right places, of course. Use prosody. That means don't be monosyllabic. Prosody is the sing-song of your speech. Add timbre when needed. Lighten up, get higher when needed to, and breathe. Actually, breathing is something people struggle to do when they're quite nervous when they're telling a story. So let your nerves go, relax, and breathe. Warm up those vocal cords. Allow your story to breathe. Create light and shade in your story with the sound of your voice. Tip number 8, be real and use emotive language. I always get really emotional. It's true, it's just not at any other time, but I always get really emotional when talking about some of the media projects I manage because they're real. They change lives. They have real changes on people's lives. So talk about your passion and your experiences when you're linking to your listener. Tip 9, stick to your story, your brand, and believe. House of Cards, have you watched it? You might have done, you might not, but it's on Netflix. They could have had any network they liked. What a great setup. But why Netflix? Here's why. No pilot. They let them develop it as it went along. Any other TV company would have piloted and changed after the pilot episode. However, Netflix enabled them to develop as they went along. They stuck to the brand, the story, and had belief in it was good enough from the very start. Stick to your story, hold your guns, believe in your brand, go for it. Tip 10, create value for the listener. Great speech-based audio creates value for its listener. Great podcasts provide a value proposition for the listener. Know what your value is to your listener and provide it for free and in abundance. Now, there are more than 10, so you can do things like add wow factor at a certain time in your podcast to make it really sing. You can use contextual linguistics, that's neuro-linguistic programming. You can make it fit contextually to the listener's life and so on. Talk to me one-to-one. That's a key thing in storytelling. Tell it to me as one person. And here's one bonus one. This is the bonus one. This would be tip 11, but we said 10 at the start. Let it end naturally. You'll find the natural ending. You really don't have to work at it. Just let it end, and it'll end. Talking of which...
Learn the secrets of the radio industry.
Radio skills for podcasters.
Today's top tip is the stumble. We all do it. I do it. Seriously, I do, and I just move on. Usually, it's because you're thinking ahead and speaking too fast or trying to get those words out before you finish the last word. A simple thing I say to many presenters is slow down, breathe, and allow yourself time to get your words out. Prep before. If you've prepped everything, you have less chance to stumble. If you do stumble, don't get frustrated. Just repeat the line and move on. I'd like to hear from you. If you have a question about radio skills, you'd like me to talk about your podcast maybe with you one-to-one, I offer podcast coaching, skills at radioskillsforpodcasters.com or at radio_skills on Twitter. You can also pop over to radioskillsforpodcasters.com for resources and all sorts of other things. Come and say hello to us. Next time in episode 7 of Radio Skills for Podcasters, get ready to learn the world of what is legal and what isn't when it comes to music and copyright in your podcast. See you next time with Radio Skills for Podcasters.
Find us on Facebook, Google+, Radio Skills for Podcasters.
At radio_skills on Twitter.
Thanks for listening.
www.radioskillsforpodcasters.com.